Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining today on this second session of our virtual tech day on the application management suite for e-business. This session is going to be focused on customization and patch management features of the suite. But before we begin, I'd like to cover a couple of quick housekeeping topics for the presentation. Number one is that we are using GoToWebinar, and you should have a toolbar available to you on your screen as you're watching. This toolbar lets you do two key things. Number one is it lets you select between the VoIP features of the web conference or dialing in. So if you have a bad connection and your screen is going slow and the audio is going in and out, I would recommend that you select the telephone radio button, and it will show you a phone number and PIN number to dial, and that will let you connect over a landline or cell phone line and save you some bandwidth and get better audio and probably better video as well. The second part of it is this question section below the audio section. If you look at that, you're able to expand that. So if you just see a little bar that says questions, click on the little plus button, it'll expand out, and you'll be able to type in your question there, and we'll be able to answer those at the end of the presentation and the demonstration. So just a little bit on that. And with that, a little bit about us. My name again is Armando Wershing, and I run the Enterprise Manager practice at Compasso. We are over 20-year-old business with offices in North and South America. We work exclusively with Oracle products, and we are and have been a platinum partner for a long time now. We're a one-stop shop. We can provide both education, the licenses, implementation services, and ongoing operation of the various tools and services that we provide. There's three key areas we focus on, although we do provide a lot of technology expertise in others, but these are kind of the most common ones. Enterprise Manager, so that's IT automation and management using the Enterprise Manager toolset, both 12C and, of course, the now recently released 13C. Capabilities around ERP, especially around the cloud ERP tools from Oracle, offerings from Oracle, and helping companies adapt their ERP systems to Brazil tax law and doing Brazil tax localization. A very intricate rule set, difficulty setting that up in some of the ERP systems, so we can help with that as well. Lots of experience there. And of course, we also have very large practice around the commerce platform at Oracle, both for B2B and B2C, setting up and using those technologies that used to be known as Endeca or ATG, and most recently the cloud commerce offering. With that said, just one last thing is that we do ask that these are tools and presentations focused on Oracle products. Please keep this in mind and keep the information shared confidential. And also, if I happen to speak about any future capabilities, those are in the future. Those are roadmap. They're not promised at any given date or time. And so please don't use that in your decision-making process. Although, again, I won't be talking about roadmap today. So let us get started. For those of you who attended the first session today, I apologize. I am going to repeat myself, but not everybody signed up for all the sessions. But we'll provide a quick overview again of Enterprise Manager. Of course, Enterprise Manager Cloud Control, 12C, 13C, has an extensive set of products and tools within it to do your IT operations and lifecycle management, including the application management suite for EBS, as well as other Oracle applications, cloud assemblies that can be used to build out private cloud or Oracle cloud implementations of Oracle applications or environments or technologies, the application testing suite that allows you to test applications, web-based applications like EBS, WebLogic, which is the underlying framework for your SOA environments and your 12.2 EBS environments, and a variety of other tools around the database management and database lifecycle management tool set to give you, again, that complete solution set for everything and anything that makes up EBS or Oracle applications, or even your own custom applications. Now, of course, today we're going to focus on the application management suite for EBS, which is just one piece of the puzzle. But all these pieces are integrated to work together within Enterprise Manager so that as you add more functionality, let's say you purchase the application management suite and then you add application testing or WebLogic Management later, you're able to easily integrate them into your flow of operations management. Now, what's in the Application Management Suite? Well, the Application Management Suite consists of a lot of functionalities and capabilities. Uh, the first session today focused on the performance monitoring and configuration and compliance management capabilities. This second session is going to be focused on change management, specifically around customizations and patching of eBusiness and the underlying technologies. And of course, this afternoon, or just shortly after this second session, the third session is going to focus on cloning, Oracle Cloud Provision, and the hybrid cloud management capabilities of the AMS. The AMS as a whole, again, delivers everything you need from beginning to end to manage your EBS environment. We spoke earlier today in the first session about monitoring and real user experience monitoring, i.e. monitoring the actual users and how they're experiencing the application, how long forms are taking to load, how long pages are taking to load, are they seeing any errors, having historical metrics from the user perspective about performance, and then, of course, drilling down to the system. So monitoring the system. Are the servers up and down? Are the services up and down? What is JVM or CPU or memory usage like? What's the database performance like? Things like that. Having the ability to monitor your concurrent processes and the concurrent processing, the concurrent managers, that make up your batch processes for EBS and your job request processes for EBS. Again, this is included as part of the AMS. We've talked about compliance configuration management, the ability to make sure that changes to EBS technical configurations or underlying configurations to the host settings or the database listener settings or the database itself. And of course, what we're going to focus on in the next section are the patch management, the tech stack patch recommendations, managing your own custom code, your customizations, and deploying those out using the same framework as rolling out an Oracle patch. And later on today, the cloud management capabilities and the hybrid cloud management capabilities. So what is the power of the IMS, in particular with 12.2? Now, that's not to say that these features aren't available with 12.3. Many, almost all of them actually are. They just look a little bit different, and the details of how they work might be a little bit different. Okay, but in overall, right, what are the benefits of the AMS? Obviously, there's the monitoring, the ability to automate your cloning so you can refresh your environments more often and keep them up to date with production, to create new environments and multiple environments as you're building out a new version. So whether you're running on 12.2 already and you're having to refresh your environments, or you're planning on a migration from 12.1 to 12.2 and you know you're going to have to build out a lot of 12.2 environments quickly, these tools all come into play. From an online patching perspective, is what we're going to talk about today, is getting those patch recommendations. You know, there's something to be said for the art of being an EBS sysadmin, a DBA, right? Knowing how to go out and look for and understanding what patches should be applied, which patch levels are recommended. And then there's the science of it, right? This makes the science of managing an EBS database or an EBS instance much, you don't have to rely on the art of it as much, right? You're bringing the process of identifying the recommended patches, the best patch process, etc., and making it easier so that your expert DBAs can go focus on more strategic tasks than just maintaining an environment, right? This allows more junior DBAs to get a report that can be defined, can be blessed, can be approved, and make sure that those patches are applied as needed across all your environments, right? Because you start simplifying the process and making it faster. And of course, with 12.2, the ability to do online patching makes it a lot easier as well to not impact your users while you're going through the patch process, right? And then streamlining your customizations. It's a pretty broad spectrum statement right there. What does that mean? Number one, allowing you to create a report and inventory of what customizations you actually have out there. I've spoken to a lot of customers, and when we're out there and we're speaking to these customers and we ask them, hey, you're moving to 12.2, where are you spending most of your time? We're trying to narrow down and standardize a lot, right? We're trying to trim down on the number of customizations and getting a report of everything that's out there and cleaning it out and making sure we bring over what's needed and we leave behind what's not is important. Right? One standard that I've seen, or common thread that I've seen across all migrations or upgrades to 12.2, is a consistent need to trim back on customizations. 12.2 has a lot of features, a lot of updates that are meeting many of the requirements that customers used to customize for, and so they're trying to get rid of a lot of these customizations and only keep the ones that are are necessary by the business to run the business. Okay, so talk a little bit about how the AMS supports all these capabilities. Now, there's 3 key change management capability areas that we're going to talk about today, or on this session, and one will be covered as part of the cloud migration, just because it makes more sense there, and I'll explain that in just a second. Patch management, the ability to go ahead and apply patches, identify patches, and have a nice standardized process for deploying those patches. Customization management, right? Now taking your customizations, packaging them into an AD compliant package so that you can use the very same patch management tool set and process that you're using to apply Oracle patches to apply your customizations. No longer are you counting on manual effort, right, for developers to hand over some manifesta files to a DBA or sysadmin, who then has to go through the manual process of copying those files over to a place, performing the build, applying the changes, etc., going through the process. It's a lot of manual effort. You automate that, you streamline it so that it becomes much more repeatable, stable, right? Take your best practices for deploying patches, create that process, define that patching process, and then you allow the tool to do it yourself. And once you do that, guess what? Both your patching of Oracle and your patching of your customizations becomes much faster, much streamlined, and you can integrate that, do more deployments over time, right? And that's really what we're trying to get to. Instead of having these massive deployments of change, of patches, once or twice a year, it has it's the metrics, the studies have shown that taking smaller amounts of change and deploying them much more often is by far more reliable and promotes much more stability and better quality than if you try and create these monolithic projects that deliver gigantic amounts of patches, that have to be tested, validated, and deployed. You automate everything, you speed up the process. The last piece, cloning. Now, originally we were going to cover in this section, but because after discussing it, it just made more sense to talk about cloning both by itself and in particular in its relationship to hybrid clouds, and in particular that lift and shift component of the service. We're going to be covering that on our 3rd session in conjunction with and actually that's going to be Oracle Product Management that's going to be delivering the 3rd session. Okay, so hopefully you've signed up and you'll be joining us to talk about cloning and hybrid cloud capabilities and hybrid cloud management using the Oracle Cloud to host your EBS instances, right? Whether that's production instances or more than likely as you get those projects and you have to scale up and out to meet project demand, to meet the business demand for new features, new capabilities, new developments, you'll be able to just quickly snap up and create an environment that development can use in the cloud instead of having to have resources locally. Okay, so let's cover each one of these. Patch management. What is patch management? Well, one is knowing what patches you have out there, right? So being able to go out there and create a report of what patches you have out there, that's part of configuration management. Being able to report on the different patches that are in some environments versus others, right? Choosing your best environment, applying all the patches there, and then comparing that environment to other environments and getting them up to that code, getting them up to that spec, right? Being able to, as you're defining which packages need to be applied, identifying the prerequisites, right? Now, this used to be a lot of digging and drilling and identifying, researching Oracle support notes, identifying which prerequisites were there, bouncing that up against some output that you're getting manually from a command line run again of the database for the EBS, and eyeballing and making sure you've got everything, and possibly applying a patch and realizing you forgot to check for a prerequisite, and so on and so forth. So automating all these pieces, providing status updates as the patch process is performing. This becomes really useful in 12.2 because you have this almost indefinite amount of time where you can apply patches before you actually do the cutover, right? And exactly how many and what patches have been applied and at what point you're going to freeze it and then actually do the cutover to the new version of EBS or the updated version of EBS is very important in 12.2 because if you lose track, right, you're going to have to do a lot of rework, back out, and then reapply things and then try for the cutover again, right? So lots of capabilities there. Again, setting up patch promotion policies and looking at patch recommendations. Now, what are patch promotion policies? This is the holy grail when it comes to process control, is making sure that you cannot deploy something to an environment ahead of its previous environment in the process lifecycle, right? In the lifecycle of the application. So should something ever go from a development environment directly into user acceptance? Yeah, there's going to be caveats to these things, but really, let's say that 95% of the time, it shouldn't. And quite frankly, if you've got really good processes that move fast, you shouldn't have to have that exception. If you've automated your testing, if you automated your deployment process, if you automated your validation steps, then you should easily be able to quickly migrate and promote changes from a development environment to a functional testing environment, run your automated regression test, get a thumbs up, put that over to user acceptance, get the user acceptance thumbs up, and move that on to production, right? So these patch promotion policies basically enforce the rules that certain patches or certain things, certain patches or customizations have to go into environments in a certain order, right? And approvals are required at each level. You can have a hierarchical approval where you have multiple layers of approval that have to approve it as things move on from one environment to another, right? And you strictly limit the ability for only super admins to be able to bypass certain patching processes. So you immediately go in there and say, look, now we know that X, whenever we bypass, it was done by X, and it was done then, they were the final approval process. And we know that nobody else can bypass this process without this person being involved in providing that approval. Okay. Patch promotion policies allow you to verify that certain patches have been applied across environments and whether or not they've been applied. So if if you're skipping so from some patches, if the sysadmin or the super admin has gone out there and bypassed certain ones, you don't lose track of that. You can still get a report that tells you whether or not a patch has been applied to a specific environment or EBS instance. Right? Then how do you find out which patches you want to apply? Well, that's where patch recommendations come in. And this is a relatively new feature. There has been patch recommendations within the AMS, but now the patch recommendations apply to all of the underlying levels of technology within the EBS stack, technology stack. So that means instead of just getting patch recommendations for eBusiness Suite, you're now getting patch recommendations for the underlying database, for the application tier, right? For the WebLogic tier. And so you're able to create these patch recommendation reports where you're able to see exactly what's going on. For example, sorry, I think I appear to have copied the slide here. Oh, sorry about that. It seemed to have locked up on me for a second. Let me back up here. So patch recommendations, right? Where do I leave off? Across multiple levels. So the ability to get your patch recommendations for your EBS specific application patches, right? Organized by product name, organized by the short name, the ability to drill down, look at the README files, get a quick description of it. And right from here, you'll notice you can actually click and select and apply those packages and say, I want to apply those to a particular patch set. So you can step by step go through these and select them and apply them to a patch set. They don't immediately go off and apply. You're just building up a checkout box, right? You could call it your bag, your checkout, your shopping cart of patches that you want to apply. You can do that for your EBS system. You can do that for the database. So again, now you're going through here and looking for database patches, right? Viewing which ones you want to apply, defining, you can create a patch plan also from there. The ability to go through and do this from the apps technology tier, right? So now we're looking again at, roll-up patches, etc. Customization patches, not customization patches, localization patches, things like that, that roll up to the technology tier and fix specific bugs. Getting patches for the WebLogic tier if you're on 12.2. Now, of course, you're going to be looking and tracking patching for your application tier on WebLogic. Of course, this is your JVM host. This is where your application is running. You're going to have critical updates here for security. Being able to run a report that tells you which critical security updates need to be applied, you'll be able to have those here as well, right? And of course, you'll be able to create and deploy both database and WebLogic patches using the EM patch plans, right? So you're going to be able to create these patch plans, schedule them. If you have an existing patch plan, you can take and have this new patch plan you created and combine it with that patch plan to have one holistic plan that's going to go out, including your EBS changes and such. So a way of integrating all these pieces together and making sure you're able to deliver all these things. Now, once you've enabled your patching and your planning, right, you are able to now deploy your Oracle patches in an automated and repeated fashion, report on what patches are out there, and generate reports on what patches should be out there, right, based on Oracle best practices or your own search methodology for finding patches. Once you've standardized on this, then the next step is to apply the same patching process to your customizations. So what that means is that you're able to go out there and now start using the customization management features of the AMS. Now that starts with reporting, right? Specifically reporting around what do you have out there. After several years, maybe even a decade of customizing a particular EBS environment, and migrating stuff over en masse, a lot of customers lose track of what's actually out there deployed or as far as customizations. So you have reports that can go out and report on your application customizations. So what custom files and what custom configurations are out there beyond what's been in the default. And you can organize those by your EBS module, right? Or by type, right? So you have two different reports, two different organizations. You get a list out that you can use to identify these and go out and get your developers to look for them, or get the business to confirm whether or not certain modifications are required or needed. So very powerful tool for getting a hold of, right, what your customizations are, especially when you're planning an upgrade. The same goes for your database, right? So what customizations have you made to your EBS database? And thus be able to track those. And again, organize those based on EBS modules or by customization type. And those types could be, tables, partition tables, queue tables, views. These are all the discovered object types that this database report will report on in order to make sure that you get all the right details of what's going on in your environment, of what customizations are out there. Again, so that you can trim down if you're doing a migration, or to make sure that you just know what customizations need to be maintained. Okay. The next piece of the puzzle is the actual customization management. So once you've reported on what you want to change, or what you want to track, what customizations you're going to keep, you're going to want to manage those customizations. And we're going to do a little bit more review of what this means, but in the demo after this. But in short, what this allows is it empowers the developers to define the manifest of files, right, within within a structured process other than a spreadsheet that gets handed or a Word document that gets handed off to the sysadmin, right? So what's the normal process for deploying an EBS application or customization? Somebody, maybe someone in development side, again, creates a manifest, a spreadsheet, or Word doc, or maybe just text in an email that says, "Hey, here is everything that needs to go on this patch, customization patch." The sysadmin gets that list. They copy all the files from some location over to the actual database, to the EBS instance. They perform the actions to build and deploy those particular customizations. And then let's suppose it happens to be, Bob, and Bob is relatively new, and Bob does the deployment. But Bob, and I apologize if anybody on the session is actually named Bob, and it's sysadmin. It's by no means is this supposed to be you. I just like to say it's Bob. So Bob is there, sitting there, waiting for the site to come up, and it doesn't, and he gets a whole bunch of errors. And the problem is that Jim, who is the normal sysadmin, knows that the developers always forget to include these 2 or 3 files that have to be part of the deployment. Bob didn't know that. So Bob now spends the next 2 hours trying to figure out why his customization deployment failed. Right? If you have this process now where you're defining the customization process within the customization management tools, you can define these requirements. You can have an approval methodology so that before a package gets created, a package of customization change gets created, it has to be approved. And once it is created, that package is now a controlled box, let's call it, right? A package of change. You can take that exact same package and deploy it across all your various environments, and it'll be able to be done in a repeatable fashion. You always know that you're deploying everything that's in that package. You're not manually copying individual files, right? You're using the patch management process to say, I'm using this automated patch management process to deploy this customization package. Now, in normal application development, right, this has been going on for years, right? For well over 10 years, where you use things like Ant and other tools to create automated processes for packaging and doing builds of Java code, and then using other tools to automate the deployment process so that you can quickly move across environments, build and deploy, having, continuous integration rather than having a lot of development going on and then suddenly waiting 3 weeks, having one big massive build of code, and you have a whole bunch of issues that have to be resolved. You need to be able to automate everything to do that. And so here, the developers create their manifest in the tool. They define any prerequisites. They define the location for all those paths. That is built as a request. Somebody approves that request. They look at the list of the manifest, say, yes, this includes everything that's needed. It's approved. The package gets built, and now that package can be used as part of a patch management process, right? And as we've talked about it quite a bit, change approval, what does that mean? That means that there is a change approval framework for all changes that occur within the customization and the patch management process. So that means that once you turn this on, right, if somebody requests a new customization package to be built, if somebody requests a new patch process to be executed, it will go through the change approval framework first, right? And it can be approved, it can be rejected. You will have a history of all the approvals and rejections that were sent out there. There's a process to handle multi-level hierarchical approvals. So having multiple users, right, in order approve the release and being able to manage the process that way. Okay. So with that, let me pause here a second and I will bring up the video. So here we are in the AMS, and we're looking at a particular EBS instance. We're looking at the various nodes. So we have the database node, the application node, the different components that make up each of those different nodes. We're able to see whether different components are up or down. Again, we look at the recommended patching processes that are out there, right, or the recommended patches, and we have the compliance area as well. So this is just the landing page for a particular EBS instance. Now, how does customization management work? Well, in the landing page for all of your EBS instances, there's a change management menu where you can go look at your change approvals, set up your patch managing process or your executions, or go to customization manager. We're going to start with the customization manager. Then the first thing you have to define when you go to set up customization manager is the source of the files, right? Now that source can be something like Subversion, SVN, CVS, could be just a file system, or your own custom one. Here is an example of just a default Subversion type of repository that we're going to actually execute commands to pull or check out files from. Now you can choose other versions. The other option, basically the way this works is if you choose one of the known versions, Subversion of CVS, you have a command that's already predefined. That command has variables that are pulled via the Enterprise Manager UI, and this tells you the various variables that are available to be defined, right, and pulled via the EMUI when you're developing or defining customizations, right? This gives you an area to test the call for those particular files and make sure that everything's working properly. The other option basically blanks out that command line interface and lets you type in your own command. We've used this to integrate with things such as MS Team Workspace, other tools such as Git. So there are tools out there that aren't necessarily listed, but that others allows you to create that other option. Now we're going to go ahead and create a customization package. So we're going through, we chose a create like, just because it populates things already. And notice that file source mapping, we've chosen one of the existing file source mappings. Now in this particular package, we had already requested a file to be included. We're going to add some more files that are part of this customization. So we're going to go into it. This tells us runs the command, tells us what's available. We select a couple more files. We add them in. Notice that based on that's actually going a little too fast. Let me back that up a little bit. We're going to add a couple more files. Notice, sorry, that's going really fast. So we're going to select these files again. We're going to add them. Now, based on the type of file, right? So we know we got a Java file, SQL file, and the LDT files here. It's going to define automatically where we expect the destination path to be, what file type it is. It makes an educated guess as to and these are usually pretty correct, but sometimes like SQL can be different types of things. Could be DDL, could be something else. So you can select specific file types if that's not accurate. You can define specific language sets for it, right? The status just tells you selected the right one. So you define your manifest, right? Pulling it directly out of the software library, whatever you're using, your configuration management library. And we're going to pull the correct versions out. It's going to create what e-business suite this particular solution is going to be mapped to, right? So different e-business suites might have different JVM versions, right? And so you want to make sure that you are building for the appropriate JVM version. When you go to deploy this customization, it will check to make sure that you are compiling for the correct Java and PID files that are on that particular EBS instance. Hopefully all of them are the same, right? But in case you have different tracks and different versions rolling at a time, you'll be able to make sure that a package doesn't go out with an incorrect or unsupported Java version. You can define prerequisites. So if this customization of yours is dependent on a particular Oracle patch to be deployed on that application or a previous customization, you can add them right here. You can provide the patch number and you can include them as part of the prerequisite check before that customization gets deployed on that environment. And of course, you can add users to the mailing list so that you can alert people when the customization package has finished being built, and thus you can perform the next action of deploying the package. And it's just that simple. Once everything's configured, that's how everything works. Now the next step is patch management. So for that, you're back in the same menu. You go to Patch Manager, and here is where you define your patch processes. You have a variety of patch processes. You have a variety of online patching processes. So there's a separate, between the two, and define which ones are which. Right? Everything has to go through an approval process before they get deployed, as long as you've got that approval turned on. Now let's create one. Now, this is actually, I made a mistake here when I was recording this, so I'm going to select Create Like because I like to have these things already kind of pre-propagated. But basically what happens is you give it a name, the patch run. You can verify your credentials. You can choose your patch nodes, how many workers are going to be there. You define your alerts list, so who's going to be alerted to all this information and which users are going to be alerted as things progress with this site. You add your patch numbers. Now, notice that there is a search field right here. So you can actually, as you're looking, you will search for patches. These patch numbers can be Oracle patches that you're going to add, right, from Oracle, or they could be your patches that you're going to add from your own software library. Then you'll add those. The results will be here. You will select the checkbox, and you will end up having a list down here of what patches you have selected, right? The order that those patches are applied in, you can control very simply by moving them up or down the chain here or the list. Control which order in there. You can review README files, et cetera, et cetera. You know which files are contained the package files and the patch files themselves, right? You can check for prerequisites for all the files, as I mentioned earlier, whether, again, that's your customization because you define prerequisites for your customization, or Oracle patches that have prerequisites, right? And then you can also set up which options you want to perform while you are running your patch. So you have the option of going out here and, of course, selecting when you want to run it. Also, you're able to define start and stop times, define a grace period so that when your site is going into patch mode, your enterprise manager doesn't start throwing out a million alerts because EBS is down. You can actually tell, hey, this site is going to go down, so we're going to do a blackout for a certain amount of time. And you can define that here. And then once that period, that window is over, all the alerts will start coming on if something's wrong. But you will receive alerts if you define them appropriately. Down at the bottom, right, you'll get notifications if there are any issues with the patch process itself. But again, you can also define specific patching procedure options like run auto config, the auto patch options, right, and the AD administration options. All the normal options you could apply with your normal patch runs, you'll be able to find them here as well. Right. Once you do that, you're able to review the entire the patch plan, and submit it as needed. Right? And that is patching. Now, everything, of course, you'll notice says pending approval. Nothing will run until it gets approval. Now, some items, if they're scheduled on a particular time and date, you will have to go and approve them before that time and date. Otherwise, some might be approved and somebody will have to log in and execute them. The approvals, if you want to manage your approvals, you can simply go out there and take a look at your approval process. And if somebody hasn't approved something, it's very easy to go ahead and ask those approvers give them a reminder. Hey, I need this approved. Please take a look at it, right? And so that's the workflow, right, for creating and managing your patching process. You have the ability to manage your customizations, package those into an AD compliant package, use the patch manager to deploy those patches alongside Oracle patches, or to just send out Oracle patches as needed. And of course, everything being controlled by a change approval process. And that's it. Right? So very quick demonstration. We just wanted you to get an understanding of how things looked, how things worked, what these features were, and be able to have an intelligent conversations or more informed conversations should you be interested in these tools. With that said, we do like to point out that Oracle Open World is coming up. And so if you are planning on going, hopefully you are, the product management will be hosting a session specifically on managing using the Oracle AMS, which is what we're talking about today. They'll be covering a lot of the same topics. They'll probably be having some customers there that will speak to their specific experience with these tools. Angelo Rosato, who is the PM for this tool set, will be there. And this is the conference number. So if you write that down, CON 6702, once they announce the dates and times and you put that on your list, there's a great little app you can download from Oracle that lets you register for different sessions, and it'll put those on your calendar. It'll show you what time, date, and session and meeting room they'll be holding this in. The other thing I like to point out is there will be a demo of the AMS on the demo grounds. You will need to go to the demo grounds in the Oracle Applications wing of OpenWorld. Usually, I believe that's Moscone West. I believe it's the same thing this year, and it's usually way at the back of the hall. But there's a big open area with little stand-up pods with screens on them. Look for the sign above the pod that talks about e-business suite, right, or e-business suite management, and that's where you'll go. And you may even run into Angelo there. We'll be doing some of the demos, or you'll be running into some of the other PMs who are knowledgeable and can answer your questions and show you specific features, or click around and show you how everything actually works, much like we did in the little video demo we did today. All right. With that said, we are finishing a little bit earlier. This is the shortest of the 3 sessions. I do have a couple questions that we'll ask out there. The first question is, does the patch recommendations apply to the Exadata databases? Yes, I believe they do. I'll have to double check that, but I believe that the patch recommendations, they leverage for the database, not the application management suite features, but core enterprise manager features, right? So the AMS is just leveraging core features of Exadata management. And so if there's any patch recommendations, you're going to see those displayed in that database patch management level, all right? The next question is any of this, are there any features that do not carry over between 12.1 and 12.2? Of the things that we've talked about today, the customization manager and the patch management, the only thing that doesn't carry over or that's different, obviously, is just because of the technology, is in 12.2, obviously you're running on WebLogic, so your patch recommendations, you're going to get those. On OAS, getting those patch recommendations is a little different. It's still there. It just doesn't look like the screens that you saw on the other level. You'll get those technology. It'll be probably fall into the technology section area. Excuse me, and you'll be able to see it there. So that is part of that as well. Of course, in 12.1 and 12.2, you don't have the online patching section. You won't use that with 12.1. That's only a 12.2 feature. You can't do online patching with 12.1.3. Of course, you don't have that architecture, the WebLogic architecture, and the parallel the parallel cutover capabilities between versions. So that's there. Can you have I have another question about approvals. Can you have multiple people at the same level to make the approval of a patch? I haven't actually tested that yet. So I have the asker's name, and I will follow up with them separately. I do need to go double check that. We definitely have had multiples of levels up to 5. We've personally, Compasso's personally set up to 4 levels, not 5. Sorry, 4 levels of approvals. But I don't know if we have parallel, simultaneous approvals where both people at the same level have to approve. I'll have to check that. If there are any other questions, I haven't seen any asked, please go ahead and type them in. I'll give it a quick second. All right. I don't see any other questions. Again, thank you very much for joining us today. Oh, we do have a quick follow-up. Oh, I see what it is. Okay. Yes, that is. So the question was, can you have 2 options for approvers at the same level, i.e. if someone's out of the office? Yes, that is something that can be configured, changed, rolled out. There's different ways to manage that. But yes, that is something that's supported. So if you need to have, somebody's going to be out and you need to have a secondary person at that same level who can provide an approval, that is something that can be managed and set up. Okay. So there are no other questions. That was just a follow-up to the last question. So again, thank you very much. We are, as I mentioned, this is the shortest of the sessions today. Thank you very much for your time. If you're joining us again for session 3, which talks about the cloning pieces and the hybrid cloud management, at the very least, even if you're not thinking of hybrid cloud or doing anything in the cloud, you definitely want to come back to see the cloning capabilities. They'll be talked in depth. We'll definitely want to look at that. Very useful, whether or not you're on the cloud. Very useful to refresh environments and such. So we're looking forward to seeing you then. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.